Okay, so this is my dots and boxes code. Let's get started with the game. First, you decide how big the board's going to be, and then how many plies it'll have, and it'll randomly decide whether you go first or the computer does. So, how you make a move is you put in the column first, and then the row. So, you choose how far right you want to go, and then how far down. So, if I want to do 3, 2 right here, I just and it'll put it there, and then it'll make its own move, and it'll keep going. And once you fill in a square, it'll give you the points based on how uh, how many it's randomly assigned. So the board is an int array, and it's nodes because we're linking it to the different moves it could take as the children for the minimax algorithm. Usually it'll take this constructor here, and that'll create the board according to the player's specifications, which is the size of the plies. And this copy constructor here is for the children nodes. Generate here will fill in the board with values and then make the boxes a random number between 1 and 5 using the random function from Java. Here's move check, and it will check and return an error type, which is a bunch of enums I have for what could possibly go wrong in input, like not being in bounds, choosing the dot instead of an empty space, picking something else picking something that's already been there. Uh, So it'll check and then update, make the move, update the score, and then it'll switch to the other player. So if it's you, it'll go to the computer and vice versa. Add children will generate all possible moves it could make for the computer, and add child will only take the ones it can make without triggering an error. For update score, it'll check if a square has been made using this function, and if so, it'll add that point to the person who just made that move, and it'll switch players. No moves is just a while for check to make sure that there's still a line to be placed in the game. This MMM will return the max versus min for the minimax algorithm. And this print board here will print out the board, all the possible points you could get from each thing, and then print the scores. For the minimax function, we have the starter function, which will call the recursive minimax function. The default 0, 0, which will be illegal, which is because it's usually going to be the top left dot, so if it returns that, we have a problem. It'll go through each of the children and find the best move given the plies it given, and then return the move to put in the game. So the recursive function, given the root and node, the plies, the alpha, and the beta, it'll get the children, checks to see if it hits the max ply number or if it's out of children. Then it does two things depending on whether you're going first or second. So for each node, it'll find the minimax of that recursively. They're going back calling the minimax function. Then update the alpha and beta values respectively. And then return it so it can make the move. So here's the game. It'll ask with the scanner to get the user input, create the starting node. So how wide, how high do you want it? It applies. It'll randomly decide who goes first. And then you put your move. Then here's the while loop, checking constantly if the board's still being played. And it'll go back and forth. So you put your move in, and it checks to see if it's a valid input. If not, it'll return the error, this error enum, and it'll just reprompt you back to picking a move. And then it'll put that move in, and then it'll send it to the computer. The computer here, it'll use the minimax algorithm with the plies that you inserted, and then makes the best move that it can. Then at the end, when everything's said and done, it'll end the game, calculate the results, and tell you who won or lost. And that's my code.